When the ring became a spectacle, intergender, exhibition, fights in boxing. Boxing has always walked a thin line, a line between sport and spectacle, between competition and curiosity, between skill and exploitation. Throughout its long and complicated history, the sport has produced moments of courage, brilliance, and transformation. But it has also produced moments that feel uncomfortable when viewed through modern eyes. Tonight, we explore one of the most controversial and rarely discussed chapters in boxing history: intergender exhibition fights. Bouts presented not as serious sporting contests, but as novelty events. And at the center of this discussion lies a fight from 1999 between Margaret McGregor and Loy Chow. A fight that forces us to ask, where does entertainment end and exploitation begin? Boxing's long history of sideshows. To understand how intergender exhibition fights came to exist, we must first understand boxing's past. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, boxing was not always the regulated professional sport we know today. It often appeared alongside carnivals, fairs, and traveling shows, bare-knuckle bouts, freak show attractions, man versus beast gimmicks, unusual matchups designed to shock and draw crowds. These were not contests built on fairness or sporting integrity. They were built on curiosity, and women, when they appeared in these settings, were rarely treated as athletes. They were marketed as spectacles. Women in the ring. Without respect for much of boxing's history, women were actively excluded from legitimate competition. When they did fight, it was often under degrading conditions. Short rounds, no official records, promoters emphasizing appearance over ability. Instead of being celebrated for skill, women were framed as novelty acts, something unusual, something to be stared at. And that framing would later influence how intergender exhibition bouts were presented. So we must ask, if women were never given full legitimacy in the sport, how could these fights ever be fair? What were intergender exhibitions? Intergender exhibition fights were not sanctioned professional contests. They were marketed as demonstrations, curiosities, or one-off attractions. Rules were often unclear. Protective equipment varied. Outcomes were sometimes pre-arranged or loosely controlled. The goal was rarely competition. The goal was attention. Promoters framed these bouts as shocking, controversial, or humorous, appealing to audiences not because of athletic excellence, but because of social taboo. And this is where the ethical problem begins. The 1999 fight. In 1999, one such event took place, a bout between Margaret McGregor, a female fighter, and Loy Chow, a male opponent. The fight was presented as an exhibition. But what did that really mean? It meant there were no meaningful safeguards. It meant the audience came to watch a novelty, not a sporting contest. It meant the fighters were placed in a situation designed to provoke reaction, not respect. Media coverage at the time focused less on technique and more on shock value. The event was treated as a curiosity, a sideshow, and the female fighter, in particular, was framed through a sensationalist lens. So ask yourself, who was this fight really for? The athletes or the audience? Power, biology, and imbalance. One of the most uncomfortable truths about intergender boxing exhibitions is the issue of physical disparity. Boxing is a sport where small differences in size, strength, and speed matter enormously. Men and women, on average, possess different physical attributes, particularly in upper body strength and bone density. This does not diminish women's boxing, but it makes intergender competition inherently problematic. Even in an exhibition, the risk of injury is real, which raises a crucial question. Is it ethical to place fighters in situations where the imbalance itself is the attraction? Sensationalism over safety. Promoters often defended these events by claiming they were harmless. No one is going full force. It's just entertainment. It's under control. But boxing history tells us something important. Control can disappear in seconds. One mistimed punch, one emotional reaction. One moment where the crowd demands escalation, and in those moments the responsibility falls on those who created the spectacle. How these events damaged women's boxing. Perhaps the greatest harm caused by intergender exhibitions was not physical, but symbolic. At a time when women were fighting to be taken seriously as athletes, these events reinforced damaging stereotypes. They suggested women belonged in novelty roles, that their presence in boxing was entertainment, not competition, that their value lay in shock, not skill. This delayed progress, and it gave critics ammunition to dismiss women's boxing altogether. So consider this. How many legitimate careers were undermined by these spectacles? A sport that grew up. Thankfully, boxing changed. Women's boxing gained legitimacy. World titles became recognized. Olympic inclusion arrived in 2012. Athletes like Nicola Adams, Katie Taylor, and Claressa Shields reshaped public perception. In that modern context, intergender exhibition bouts feel out of place, even embarrassing. They belong to a past the sport has worked hard to escape. Why talk about this now? Because history matters, because understanding where boxing went wrong helps protect where it is going, and because exploitation often hides behind the word entertainment. The 1999 fight is not discussed because it is glorious. It is discussed because it is instructive. It reminds us what happens when spectacle overrides ethics. Your turn intergender exhibition fights were not about equality. They were not about progress. They were about attention. And today, looking back, they leave us with difficult questions. Do you believe these events should ever have happened? Were they harmless exhibitions or exploitative sideshows? Could something like this exist in modern boxing without damaging the sport? Leave your thoughts in the comments, because boxing, like all sports, is shaped not only by what it celebrates, but by what it chooses to leave behind.